With the midterm elections just 2 weeks away today, many voters are now retreating into their left corner and their right corner, but it's the folks in the middle, swing voters, folks who don't fit neatly into Democratic or Republican labels that often end up determining the outcome of key races, congressional districts, and states. Case in point, Justin Amash. He was the founding member of the House Freedom Caucus. He was the first Republican to come out against Trump during Trump's first impeachment. Amash subsequently decided to leave the Republican Party. He switched to become an independent. Then he left Congress and became a libertarian. So what does Justin Amash make of the state of the politics of the November elections? Former Michigan Congressman Justin Amash joins me now live in studio. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too.
When you left the Republican Party in 2019, you wrote in a Washington Post op-ed, quote, "I've become disenchanted with party politics and frightened by what I see from it. The two-party system has evolved into an existential threat to American principles and institutions." So 3 years later, do you feel that same way still?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think anything has changed structurally to make it better. So if you look at what President Biden is doing, what Speaker Pelosi is doing, what the Senate Majority Leader is doing, and then if you look at what the Republicans are doing, it's the same dysfunction, the same partisanship, the same lack of representative government. It doesn't work the way our Constitution is designed.
So what would need to happen? Do you think the parties are just being pulled too far to the extremes? Do you think there needs to be less gerrymandering? What changes?
I think some of those electoral changes would help. I mean, with respect to gerrymandering, if you had ranked choice voting in more states, I think that would help. But I do think you need structural reforms in Congress, and really that can only be handled at the top. Someone like Speaker Pelosi or whoever the Speaker of the House is, Kevin McCarthy, who I don't think will do this, needs to decentralize the Congress and let members participate. Right now, they don't participate at all. They're basically given legislation and told take it or leave it. And I think that leads to a lot of performative politics, because when you can't debate policy, you debate personalities. And I think that's what happens all the time in Congress.
Yeah, and it's actually one of the reasons when people who out there who are watching their TV ads and they say Congressman Jones voted with Nancy Pelosi 99% of the time. Honestly, like, the kinds of votes that happen in Congress right now, they're pretty baked in. Like, most people vote 95% with their party, it seems.
Yeah. When I first got to Congress, we had more votes on the floor. We had more amendment votes. We were able to participate. Members of Congress today, at least in the House of Representatives, can't even offer amendments on the House floor that will be taken up. The leadership basically says you have to send it to the Rules Committee, they're going to vet it, and they're going to decide whether you can have a vote on it. So there are very few amendments now on the House floor, and that means you don't get to differentiate the members of Congress very much. When I first got in...
Or improve legislation.
Yeah, or improve the legislation.
Yeah.
When I got in there, you might have 100 amendments on a piece of legislation. Some people might think that's too much, but what's nice about it is you get to know who your member of Congress is, and you also get to discover the outcome. You get to actually represent people. You all get in there, you have this just giant pie of material, and then you put it together and you see what comes out.
So you live in Michigan, battleground state, lots of competitive races. The governor's race is competitive. What are you sensing? You heard my monologue earlier talking about how it seems right now Democrats and Republicans feel as though Republicans are going to probably have a pretty good night in 2 weeks. What are you picking up out there?
Yeah, that's my sense too. I think Republicans will take back the House. I think the Senate is a close call, but it seems like increasingly they might take the Senate as well. I'm not sure this is a good thing for Republicans in the long run, especially for Kevin McCarthy if he's the Speaker of the House.
Why?
Because if you have a small Republican majority, if it's not a big enough win on election day, and it could be, I think, a marginal win for Republicans. In other words, they maybe have a 10 or 15 seat majority or something like that. If that's the case, then you have a few members of the House who will basically be able to dictate the process to Kevin McCarthy, which could be good for the overall flow of the House. It might actually open things up, but it's going to make Kevin McCarthy's job miserable.
And Kevin McCarthy, not somebody that you have a tremendous regard for his leadership skills.
Right, not someone I admire. I think he's basically craven. I think his goal in life is basically to empower himself. And I've seen him go through Congress not knowing what he's talking about, switching policy positions on a dime. We saw that with President Trump, where one day he's saying Trump is responsible for January 6th, another day he's saying Trump is great and he's not responsible. So you know, he's a guy who's about himself, and I think that's really bad for Congress. But when you look at how Congress has functioned under Speaker Pelosi or under Speaker Ryan or even under Boehner, it's been a pretty closed off place for a long time. And if we don't fix that, you're going to keep having people like Kevin McCarthy.
So I want to ask you about the debate in your home state of Michigan this evening between the Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the Republican nominee Tudor Dixon. Let's listen to a quick snippet from that.
She refuses to accept the outcome of the last election. She has not yet said she will accept the outcome of the next election. So when she says she will accept the will of the people, she is an election denier and does never, ever has said that Joe Biden actually won this last election.
I would like to comment on Gretchen Whitmer and her demeanor tonight, coming after me, calling me an election denier. We know that this is going to be the way the evening goes, but I'm wondering when she will say that she can't run with Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist anymore, because I would believe that he is also an election denier.
All right, just to bring people some facts here, Tudor Dixon there is referring to a 2017 Detroit city clerk race. And it's true, Whitmer's lieutenant governor asked for a recount. After the recount was completed, he accepted the results, which is, of course, entirely different from Tudor Dixon, who has repeatedly said that she doesn't believe Joe Biden won the presidency in 2020 and has spread falsehoods about widespread voter fraud. This is a real sickness in the Republican Party, these election lies.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem, but the Democrats keep handing them ammunition. So I think that's also, you do have people like Stacey Abrams and others over the years who have said things, and they'll latch on to anything. So even if there's a little bit, the Republicans are going to latch on to it. It's partisan politics. It's not the same degree, it's not the same level, and it might only be a few people in the Democratic Party and a lot of people in the Republican Party. But unfortunately, what happens, and I've seen this in politics, is if one party gives them a little bit, they'll say, well, you're just like us. There's no difference, and we're just trying to defend democracy the same way you are.
Dixon's one of at least 9 candidates on the ballot in Michigan who questioned or denied the results of the 2020 election, including the Republican nominees for Secretary of State and Attorney General. I know you, and I thought you were an interesting legislator. Your successor, Peter Meijer, the same. What's going on in the Republican Party in Michigan? I guess it's the same thing that's going on nationally.
I mean, it's the same thing everywhere. But when you look at Peter Meijer's recent race, he came close to winning, right? It wasn't like a blowout by the Trump-backed candidate. So I think there is a possibility, an opening for people to move this back in the right direction in select places in the country, not everywhere. Maybe West Michigan is very different from a lot of other places in the country. But I don't think it's a wholesale everywhere Trump-backed candidates are going to win. And you saw that in places like Georgia as well and other races where there are some non-Trump-backed candidates who have succeeded.
Sane Republicans.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Justin Amash, always good to have you. I'm glad you're getting to spend more time with your family. That's a wonderful thing.
Appreciate it.